I do not know.
When I think of Black History Month, I think of Harriet Tubman and how she helped over 300 people escape from slavery using the Underground Railroad.
I don't really find the purpose in Black History Month. I think it promotes inequality by separating 1 month just for African Americans. Equality should be every day.
When I think of Black History Month, I think of people like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and all the things that they have done and accomplished to bring equality between all people.
When I think about Black History Month, I think about the opportunities that my people have today because of the sacrifices and struggles that activists went through in the past.
It's a time to reflect on the world's history.
When I think of Black History Month, I think of October 23rd, 1993 at 11:39 p.m. in the evening. Do you know what happened then?
Nope.
Well, that was when Joe Carter hit a home run, a walk-off home run to win the second World Series for the Toronto Blue Jays. One of the biggest bursts of emotions I ever had in my life, and it was actually 1 month before my father had passed away. So my father and I actually had a great memory watching that game together. Joe Carter was one of his favorite players. So that was one of the last memories, great memories that I had with my father. Watching Joe Carter, and that's why he reminds me of Black History Month.
What do I think of when I think of Black History Month? Well, first thing that comes to mind is a chance to reflect on certain figures in history, such as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and of course, most recently Barack Obama. I also think it probably gives us an opportunity to understand that we can now face any hardships in our life and struggles. And secondly, to appreciate the fact that we don't have to deal with certain injustices.
This question is not an easy one to answer. There are several reasons why we can say we celebrate Black History Month, but there are also many gaps in our understanding of why on the second month of the year, we pay homage to several Black men and women of history. When the topic of why the remembrance of Black history falls on the second month of the year, the typical response is, why did they give us the shortest month of the year? Which is a common misconception because Black History Month was not given to one specific group. The great African American historian Carter G. Woodson and his organization, the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, which was formed in 1915, and African people in the United States and Canada forced the system to recognize the contributions of Africans all over the world. Black History Month was actually meant to only be celebrated for a week and was usually supposed to fall on 12th, Abraham Lincoln's birthday, and the 14th, Frederick Douglass calculated to have been his natal day. His intent was for African contributions to be recognized by everyone, because just like any other activist in history, their change affects all of us. But to gain a true understanding of what Black History Month really means, we must first go back to when it all began. The first slave ship docked in Jamestown, Virginia in August of 1619. From there, the slave trade business began to boom. And in the words of Norman Richmond, Africa was carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Slaves would be captured and shackled, then placed on human cargo ships and delivered to the United States and parts of the Caribbean. From 1808 to 1860, the nation's Black population had jumped from 400,000 to 4.4 million. 3.9 million of which were slaves. The United States went from being a country that accounted for 6% of slaves imported to the New World to one that held more than 60% of the hemisphere's slave population. Of the 3.2 million slaves working in the 15 slave states, 1.8 million worked in the cotton fields. Slavery was also prevalent in Canada. From 1628 to 1833, Canada had approximately 8,000 slaves. It is not something that is well known to the world, or amongst Canadians for that matter, and is definitely a darker part of our history. Many Canadian authors call it one of Canada's best kept secrets. But even with the degrading of the African race, there were still many iconic figures who took great strides to lead slaves to freedom, like Frederick Douglass, who escaped from slavery and became a social reformer, auditor, writer, and statesman. He also served as Abraham Lincoln's advisor on 2 occasions, as well as Harriet Tubman, who helped forge the creation of the Underground Railroad and brought about 70 slaves to freedom. But freedom did not truly exist until January 1st, 1863, when President Abraham Lincoln issued his Emancipation Proclamation, abolishing slavery and releasing all slaves from the custody of their masters. Although slavery had been abolished, intolerance had not. Segregation of the black community took place, particularly in the South, and it took the dedication and bravery, charisma, and the courage of a lot of people, black and white, to stand up for what they believe in. People like Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Maya Angelou, Rosa Parks, Booker T. Washington, Bessie Coleman, Madam C.J. Walker, Thurgood Marshall, Chuck Berry, James Meredith, and a name we know all too well, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was at the forefront of the civil rights movement. This pastor, activist, and humanitarian was famous for his role in the advancement of the civil rights using nonviolence and civil disobedience based on his Christian beliefs. His I Have a Dream speech, delivered August 28, 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., had gained worldly recognition for being one of the most inspiring and history-making moments of the 20th century. A year later, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. 4 years later, segregation had ended, and sadly a year later after that, King was assassinated April 4th, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. Our world has taken numerous steps forward, but it is not unusual to see the acts of racism and separation in modern day. But just like those before us, we must stand up for what we believe in. If we can do so much as make Martin's dream come true, then we can change our communities and the way we think. The difference that happened in the past has paved the way for a lot of stars today. These trailblazers of history do not only change our lives, they give us hope for a better world. And that is something that will always make us more united than separated.
Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.